just the ability to create. You know, that's what I always wanted. Look at the birds now. They're beautiful. You can hear them, huh? Nur in Arabic, it means light. And he is light. I'm jealous of his happiness. No matter how tired I am, how exhausted, whatever that is I'm dealing with, being near him just creates this positive environment that's for me, he's my baby, my beautiful baby.
Today, when you go down any avenue here in Baghdad, the most dominant feeling, the most gripping emotion among ordinary people is fear, and that fear is legitimate.
And this comes only 6 days before the U.S. elections. Elections which are clearly being dominated by what's happening on the ground in Iraq. You've been doing a lot of reporting on the risk.
I have an uncle who used to color photo, and I remember as a child sitting next to him, I was fascinated by the color on the Q-tip, the different color, and the smell of oil color. It's just, I still think it's just incredibly beautiful smell, you know. Iraq is a very ancient land, you know, especially the city where I lived. It's called Nasiriyah, which is on the Euphrates. The people, the pace, the relationship between people, it's not really very complicated. Yes, it has, you know, war, and it's very hot. So in the summer it's extremely hot, and like I lived there, I survived it. My family still lives there, and they still survive it. But I still, in my heart, and you know, I see it the way I always saw it as a child. I think I got more serious about art at the age of 12, because that was my first exposure to Michelangelo's work, and it was in a book that it has the Sistine Chapel paintings and some of his sculpture, and I was totally fascinated by it, and I started sketching it a lot, you know, just doing so much sketches from there, and at the same time I was exposed to literature with by reading the Homer, the Odyssey, and so it started this fascination with art and a human expression or human condition, and it's never stopped since I was 12. So I think that's, to me, that's the drive in my work. I look at stone that I get, and I look at this, I see movement. And if it doesn't, then I have to break some certain corners from that piece to create some movement. And the movement, I'm not really sure, you know, whatever at the time I'm feeling. Some movement, like I said earlier, is like there's some pieces that they just scream, you know, and there's some pieces they just want it to be quiet and they just scroll it to themselves. The painting in the background is it's of my sister. Her husband was traveling in Baghdad, and there was a car bomb and explosion, and he was one of the civilian people who were in the market that got killed in the latest war. At the time, she was 20 years old, and she was already a mother with a child that's 2 years old, and 5 months. She was 5 months pregnant. To think of her as a young widow, you know, it's still surreal to me. You know.
But let it be clear, we will not let this aggression stand. Our interest and let me also make clear that the United States has no quarrel with the Iraqi people. Our quarrel is with Iraq's dictator and with his aggression.
We were encouraged to have an uprising, and I was part of that uprising against Saddam. We thought for sure, Saddam is going to be gone, and so, but to our surprise, that didn't happen. The Republican Guard came to Nasiriyah, to the city where I am from.
There were no TV cameras here to record what happened. Only this extraordinary amateur videotape shot by two brothers, one of whom was killed. Their pictures show the climax of the Shia rebellion at the end of March.
We know about chemical weapons. We know what they did in Halabja, that occurred in '88. So it's something that everybody feared, and we know they are capable of using it. So they had this loudspeaker saying, you have to get out of the city because it's going to be bombed with chemical weapons.
The revolt had almost succeeded, but Saddam's Republican Guard and their tanks had been left intact by the Allies. Desperate women and children can only call on God now to help. Most of these people are about to die.
Children and the female, they were on one side, and they took the male to the other side. And they started going, basically torturing and beating and trying to figure out who was in the uprising, But it was a chaos. It was just incredible chaos. So I was fortunate enough to survive all that torture and interrogation, to be sent to the city to report to it, to the police there, to be interrogated again. But by then, when they released me for even those couple of days, I made my mind that after all I've seen, and I'm going to try to hide or find a way to get out of Iraq. And luckily at the time, the American forces were in the city of Nasiriyah on the border. They were just, if they see anybody who's in the army uniform, they just capture them as a prisoner of war. So a lot of people who wanted to escape, they pretended to be in the army, and so I was one of them. I wanted to be captured by the American forces as a prisoner of war because that was my only chance to survive. So I did.
Aggression is defeated, the war is over.
The camp was taken over by the Saudi soldier, and we saw the treatment of the American and the Saudis, and there's no comparison. The Saudis, they really just hated, us to be there, not Iraq nor Saudi Arabia have a great history of treating a human being as, you know, with integrity. You know, I started doing these sketches on cardboard, and the Saudi's captain who took charge of the camp, you know, heard of me doing these sketches, and he wanted me to basically just, you know, do painting of his family, you know, just portraits. So I started to do a lot of those for him, and he wanted to give me money to, you know, for all the painting that I did, and I, you know, at the time I really didn't have use for the money. I was living in a tent, you know. But there was a group of us who was, you know, there's some artists, musicians, some kind of people who are intellectual. I just, you know, thought, you know, like the best you could do for me is like just, at least let's just make cases for us with the United Nations. And so that was basically what I did, you know, and for him it was just, you know, not a big deal, you know. Eventually all of the list that I gave him, all of us got out, you know, and, you know, some within a year, some within 3 years or so. For me, it took 2.5 years. Through the journey of coming all the way from Iraq, you know, surviving war, and, you know, art's still been, you know, kind of my outlet. It's in my blood, and, you know, this is really my, you know, my path.